is enough!
Serious.
And we hold the world ransom for
Wayne Gandy.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Show me.
Broadcasting live in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the Sports Chalk Show with Wayne Gandy.
Fire it all.
Welcome back to the Sports Chalk Show. I'm the Sports Chalk Wayne Gandy down in Daytona. Yesterday, the Daytona 500. Interesting, I think, to all of us that have been on the Sports Chalk Show, and probably to you as well, is how NASCAR, in my opinion, just in the Sports Chalk opinion, hosts its biggest race as the first race of the season. Right. I know other races have names, but I don't know of any name of NASCAR races is bigger than the Daytona 500. And to start the season off that way has always been interesting, because usually this is more of a closer to the end when you get around to the bigger names. You don't usually start off with the big show, but this is the big show. Stars everywhere, new rules being engaged in NASCAR. As I said, when the show opened, I was good through stage 2. Then I got kind of lost with Kenny, kind of how you do with the college poll. Right. I got kind of lost after the second stage. So we got our man Doug Fireball Turnbull on the line. He's going to help us navigate to this victory lane. Good morning to you, Doug.
Hey, good morning to you all. I'm glad you got to watch it. And you raised a good point about the biggest race being first. The reason I think it is because Daytona's always been the biggest race, and even when they ran on the beach back in the 40s and 50s, I think it always ran this time of year. But it didn't always used to be the first race. Sometimes it was the second or the third. So that's kind of, it has migrated into being the first race. But certainly they end the season with the big championship race in Homestead, Florida in November. But the 500 is always the biggest single race.
Looking at this race, lap 105, I was asleep the first 60 laps. I missed stage 1. Now, stage 2 and 3, I did catch. Kyle Busch, and I was watching his car as the wreck started. Why did his car just spin like somebody just was on top of it, spinning it into that accident?
Yeah, like the devil just gave it a shove out of thin air. Yeah, it was because a tire went down. That's what he said, and he actually called Goodyear out and said that every year Goodyear tires have trouble holding air in Daytona. That's paraphrase what he said in the garage afterwards. It looked initially, when you first saw it, like maybe he had contact with the rookie Eric Jones behind it, but a tire went down, and when you lose a tire dramatically like that, it's hard to keep control, especially when you're at the top of the banking and at such high speed at Daytona. So his wreck actually took out several drivers, including Dale Earnhardt Jr., so that was a tough break there, and Kyle Busch will yet again go winless in the 500.
And looking at, I enjoyed this race. How would you say the stage, this new format? I know it seems like it caused a lot more accident, but it seemed like people were driving for the first time in a long time.
Well, that was the idea, is to make people race harder earlier in the race. I don't think that the stage has actually caused really more wrecks. But what it did cause is that the field wanted to get single file and kind of ride around for a little while. When you got to the end of the stage, people knew that they needed to break up into a second line and try to charge up toward the top 10. And so you especially saw when stage 2 ended at lap 120 that there was a drag race for the lead between Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano to get that playoff bonus point for winning the stage. And then, of course, there was intensity throughout the top 10 as people were trying to get one of the top 10 spots, because if you finish in the top 10 in one of the stages, you also are awarded regular season points, and those matter more now. So I don't really think it caused more wrecks. A lot of people said, well, there was a change in the format, and this weekend was a crash fest in all 3 NASCAR races, but I don't really think it was because of the stages. I think there were several factors.
Now, I learned something yesterday that I didn't know about NASCAR, and you have a guy that is called a spotter. Every team has a spotter. Anything different about his job than the title? Because I understand what a spotter is. Is there something I need to know other than a guy with some binoculars standing over the track?
Well, I mean, that's what they are. But what they're doing is not only monitoring their driver and telling them if they have room to make a move, or you got a car up high, car down low, but they're also telling you what the other cars and the other teams are doing. So that's in a restrictor plate race. A spotter that's their most important race, and that's the kind of racing that you have at Daytona, Talladega, big pack. And so they can tell the driver, hey, this line has this energy, or the car behind you, is three, just a little bit off your bumper or something like that. And so the information they give the drivers allows them to make moves. They can also give information to the driver's crew chief and say, hey, it looks like the 3 team is about to pit. They're not skipping pit road here. They're going to pit. I see action in their pit box. They're getting equipment going. And so the spotter has eyes all over the track. It can inform the team of all sorts of different procedures to either fix the car or what NASCAR's saying or whatever. So they're vitally important, and I think the public is just now realizing how important they are.
Fireball, good morning. Now, yesterday we saw the drag race effect. We saw the crash fest. We saw Chase Elliott run out of gas with like 2 or 3 laps left. Even though the crash effect and all of that wasn't the intention of the stages, did we get more drama yesterday at the Daytona 500 than we got in all of last season's NASCAR?
Well, I don't know about that. There was certainly a lot of drama last year, and I actually thought last season, drama-wise, was very intense at different times, especially at the end, in the playoffs. But yesterday's Daytona 500 certainly had it all. You had 4 wrecks eliminate over 15 cars. I mean, knock them completely out of the race. And there were only about 5 cars that didn't have some kind of crash damage at all yesterday. It was really incredible. The fuel situation, the reason it played out like that and why Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, and several others ran out of fuel is because the last caution, which, is the period when everybody slows down and can come to pit road, happened just on the very edge of their fuel window. Their fuel window was 44 to 48 laps. And the race went green with about 50 laps to go. So that means everybody really was stretching their fuel. And to make matters worse, when the field got single file there in that closing stage, they were all running the high line at the track. Well, that's the longer way around the 2.5-mile Daytona surface. And so you think if they were all single file on the lower line, they may have been able to have just enough fuel to make it to the end. And we'd probably be talking about Chase Elliott winning his first ever Cup race and it being the biggest race of all, the Daytona 500. But instead he ran out and Kurt Busch won.
Fireball, this is Conway Twitty. Quick question.
Yo.
Danica Patrick, she's complaining about the rules forced her to exit. She didn't know the protocol. Is there not a driver's meeting for rules before each race?
I didn't see her exact complaints. I know she had a pretty long interview in the garage there on Fox, but I don't know it's so much that she didn't know the rules. I mean, maybe she as a driver didn't know them, but I think a lot of people question the rules because what happens is now if a car gets crash damage, the crew has 5 minutes to repair it on pit road. And if they can't get it fixed, or the way they can get that clock reset is if they go out back on the track and make a lap at minimum speed, which is the speed mandated by NASCAR at each track that they have to get to be able to stay in the race. And then the clock resets, and then they can repair it some more. In Danica's case, there was no way they were going to repair her damage, or at least the crew decided they could not repair it in 5 minutes. So they just went ahead and went straight to the garage, and the race was over. And I think her complaint is it stinks that she couldn't go out and make some more laps, even if she was going to be 10 laps down, so she could get some points and some exposure for her sponsor. But NASCAR's trying to eliminate those wounded cars being on the track so they don't bring out more caution.
Minimum speed yesterday was a 56-second lap. So if you couldn't do a lap, 56 seconds. I was there now. I know y'all thought Sports Jock was playing about his NASCAR.
It was all that subliminal while you were asleep.
All of that. About 20% less than what a lap at race speed was. So that was something like 160-something miles per hour is what that would be. And that's what they mandated. And there really weren't any issues with cars keeping minimum speed, but there were a lot of damaged cars out there that got repaired in under 5 minutes.
Now, Matt, before I let you go, Fireball, we talked about Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Paul Menard, Kyle Larson. All of those people ran out of gas. Is it the same feeling as a person on the highway feel? Because, Jeff Gordon and Darrell Waltrip, they were talking as though, I'm like, they about to run out of gas. It's like they got like 7 laps to go. But they was all so cool, like, nah, it's going to happen. And I'm thinking, I know the gas light is on. So is it like when you're on the highway and you get that kind of stress, like, man, am I going to get to the next exit?
No, because they don't have wives in the car. That's what it is.
that entire last run, in fact, even before they made that final pit stop, the crews started realizing as things were coming that they were going to try to be on a one-stop strategy where they make the race and only one more stop. And the window to make that stop where the cautions fell is it happened just outside of the fuel window. So everybody in that top pack that we saw at the end of the race, including the race winner Kurt Busch, figured they were going to be very close, but they couldn't. They knew that if they pitted to get fuel, they were not going to win. And so when you're out there running, you're just hoping that you'll either get a caution or maybe you could save a little bit of gas. Nobody was saving any gas. They're running wide open in a line. And so that's really, it was just, they were just hoping that they had enough. And most calculations, even Kurt Busch was supposed to be a half a lap short. I'm surprised Chase Elliott ran, 2 or 3 laps short like he did. I mean, he was able to nurse it around the racetrack, but it was a surprise, I think, that they ran out so short at the finish. But at the same time, there's no fuel light or empty full gauge in the car. They have a fuel pressure gauge, and that's the only way. That's just part of it. Just like how they don't have a speedometer in the race car either. So that's I don't think. I think you just race hard and hope you win.
Really, there's no gas, something to. Chase just rides.
Just fuel pressure.
Just rides.
Fuel pressure gauge, yeah.
He just rides, and when it stops, he's just out. It's just
oh, man.
That's it. That's it. That's exactly it.
Wow, that's funny. Thank you, Fireball, for helping us out, and we appreciate it as always.
I love being on with y'all, and I wrote a blog about this whole race, broke it down on WSBRadio.com. Y'all check it out.
WSB Radio, Fireball, Doug Fireball Turnbull. We'll be back. More of the Sports Jock Show right after this.
Fireball.
Don't go away. More of the Sports Jock Show with Wayne Gandy is coming up next.